indifferent. He was going to the lame, the crippled, the nobodies. I mean, just the absolute bottom rung. And he says, you know, when we, of course, God cares about all people equally, but the world doesn't treat everyone equally. And so you can see this particular focus throughout the entire scriptures, where God is going to the nobodies, the left out. And he says, you know, when you throw a feast, don't just invite your friends. Don't just invite your family. What does he say? He says, you know, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. It's not that they're any better than anyone else. It's just they're not being treated the same as everyone else. They're being left out. You know, you go to the story of Hannah and Ishmael. God reveals himself as the God who sees. That's what Ishmael's name means. He was given that name because here's an abused slave whose whole life, and she's pregnant against her will. She's being mistreated. She's run out into the desert to die. And God says, no, I see you. I see you. And so God sees. But we also can see. We have eyes. We are his hands. We are his feet. It says, you know, we are the ones that are to defend the oppressed, to take up the cause of the fatherless, and to plead the case of the widow. And so, you know, as Christina mentioned, I mean, it's kind of shocking if you haven't been exposed to our ministry before and you see the situations the kids living in. I mean, that's a lot of kids in one room, right? I mean, that seems like, well, that's not so great, huh? Right? So let me show you some of the other pictures, because what we've been trying to do ever since we have met with these kids, I mean, that purple building that was on the left, that's what it was beforehand. And they actually live in an area that's prone to hurricanes. This is about a mile from the coast. And you go in there, and this didn't even have a foundation. It was just kind of a lean-to. There were wooden beams in there that were creaking and broken. And this was a church building. There was no home. The kids slept in here on the floor. They had no separate space. There's no bathroom. Go to the next slide. Let's see. This was another place. The kids in this one, so when we met these kids, they were squatting in this abandoned government building. This wasn't even their building. They were just squatting there. Let's go to the next slide. This was actually a church building that we did own, our partners owned, but this is where they were sleeping. Just throw a little thing on the floor. Let's go to the next slide. I think I have one more. Just, very, very rough situation. But because of what God has opened doors and the support of people like you, I mean, we've taken them. Now they have mattresses. Now they have beds. They were, at first, it's kind of a sad story, but when we first got connected, we were giving all the money that we could to support, and almost all of it goes to food, honestly. That's by far the biggest expense. But we were not sending enough. We were filling their bellies, but they were not growing still. Because basically, when you don't have enough money for food, what you do is you just buy rice. And if you can imagine, rice will keep you alive, but you will not grow if you only eat rice. But thank God we've moved beyond that. Now the kids are growing. So it's all about, going back to Mephibosheth. I did it. That was good. I'm just not going to try to. David didn't just say, I'll spare your life. Now get out of here. He didn't just say, I'll restore your land. Get out of here. He said, no, you're going to eat at the king's table. And so we have added medical care. We have added nutrition. We have added beds. They were neglected, and now they are nurtured and loved. And we're trying our best to give them a seat at the king's table, like Mephibosheth. It's a hard thing because it's hard to be satisfied. I mean, if you think about in our own families, think about your own family. You would never take one of your kids and feed them at the expense of one of the other ones. If you didn't have enough food, you would just, give everyone as much as you could. And so where the heart of Global Grace is at is I want to treat these kids like they are God's kids, because they are. Yep. And just because they don't have a father and a mother to take care of them, who then? Whose job is it to be their father? Who's going to take up their cause? And that's where the body of Christ steps in. We are their parents. We are, and you are a part of that. And as Bill was saying, I mean, we're all one body. And it's remarkable in this day and age how, Paul was like getting on ships and going from Corinth to, Thessalonica or whatever, and hey, raise some money, we'll give it to Timothy, and he'll put it in a purse and sail to Jerusalem. The world is so much easier now. I mean, God has just opened up doors. That's really all we do, is we are trying to help the body of Christ work together. And as Christina was sharing those pictures of those people that are there caring for the kids, you are partnering with them. You probably will never meet these people, but we are working together to be the parents to take up the cause of the fatherless. This kind of looks like an idyllic, neat little tropical scene, but one of the homes we met, this is where the kids were sleeping, just out in the open air under a roof. And when I visited here, there was literally a cobra in there. The kids weren't there at that time, but so we're very thankful God has brought us very far. And so, part of our ministry is just encouraging that all the body of Christ. We just, if we can, David had the means, right? He had the means to put Mephibosheth at the king's table. And so we just give people an opportunity. Christina and I, it's very important to us that we don't ever try to trick people or compel people into giving or supporting anything. It's just very much like, this is what we're doing, and we encourage you or invite you, is a better word, to come alongside us and what we're doing.
So Daniel was talking about the least of these and people who are outcast. You can go to the next slide. These are our widows, and we call them women of grace, but widows are generally ostracized and outcasts of society. They're thought to be cursed. So in lots of old school ways of thinking, they are the reason that their husbands passed. So they are not wanted under the roof, so they kick them out. So India is actually full of a lot of homeless widows, elderly widows. So this is in connection with one of our churches, one of the children's homes. So they live in the same building as one of our children's homes, and we have 20 of them that currently live with us, and they are welcome to stay with us through the end of life. We've sort of adopted them, and we feed them, and we have a doctor that comes and sees them regularly and takes care of all of their medications. They're just beautiful old ladies, and listen, it's a great benefit to have in that home because you have the elderly and the young kids, and they keep each other in line, and but they're beautiful. Next slide. So the woman on the right there, she was leading every place we stopped, they had a little prayer and song or two, like a little worship service, kind of brief worship service, but she was singing, and the girl behind her, which you can't really, the lady behind her is playing the bongos. So it's a beautiful community. Now this is a lot of people to feed, so they definitely go through 180 pounds of rice a month. It's a huge home. So you see the children in front and the widows sitting in back on the chairs, and it's a great combination. This is pretty far out from the city, so it took us hours to get there. It's out in a village, and to have sort of it's a very small village, and the church is a central part of the village. So much so that we have a well that is for the facilities, and it's like a wall and a gate. It's like a gated around the church, and the children's home is gated. So the inside where the well is, there's a faucet that goes to the outside of the wall, so that even when the gates are locked, anyone can come from the village and have free, clean water. So literally the church is like a very central part of that community, even though it's a Hindu state. It's majority of people in India are Hindus. Maybe I should have started with that. If you guys have any questions, feel free to interrupt me and ask, because I have so much information in my head, I couldn't possibly know what you want to know and what you don't. So just ask. Okay, next slide. When I was there, so I don't know if you can see us in the middle of the picture, this is our sewing school. So in addition to helping the children and the widows, we also help women. We help train and equip women to become female entrepreneurs. So in India, a lot of your clothes you don't buy completely hemmed and fitted and sewn properly. You just buy a lot of the materials. So seamstresses are in high demand. And a lot of these women are moms, and a lot of them are Christian, stay-at-home moms. So they're kind of in the bottom rung of class, if you were to really talk about it.
They don't have many economic opportunities.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So we invite them to apply. We have a long list of applicants. So we only choose 30 every 6 months. 20 every 6 months.
Sometimes 30, but usually 20.
Okay. And they go through a 6-month program, and they learn everything. They showed us their portfolios. You can go to the next slide if you want. Like here on the left, this woman is showing me her portfolio that she's worked on for 6 months. Like every possible stitch you can ever imagine. I don't sew. It looked really complicated. I was amazed. I don't know. Maybe you wouldn't be. But so they show us these. They work on these. They graduate, and then on the far right, you see she gets the base with the box. So there's the base of the sewing machine that it's sitting on, and then the actual machine itself. So we purchase that through your donations. We give it to them, and it's equipping them, right? Teach someone to fish, but if you don't give them a pole, it doesn't do any good. So then they go off and they can earn, staying in their home, they earn, help their families financially. Also, while they're in that 6-month program, they attend the church there. So this is one of our directors. You saw Bishop Evans in the beginning. This is housed in his church in the city, and they attend church while they're in the course. This woman on the left just got baptized, and now her husband is coming to church too. We had another woman testify, so we had a little worship service in the graduation ceremony. I was able to hand out the certificates. It was beautiful. They had beautiful testimonies. So every woman gave her testimony of sort of how she came there and what brought her there and her life story, brief. But and one woman said she was really impressed with the program, that that we accept Hindus and Christians alike, which is socially unique. So we accept Hindus and Christians alike, no matter your caste or creed, you love us all. And
we're showing that
in
Christ there's neither Jew nor Greek, nor male nor female, nor slave nor free, but we're all one in Jesus.
When, you don't think about these things, but when you have the light, just kind of shows everywhere in all aspects of what you're doing. And it's a testament to what our directors are doing and the program itself. Next slide. The woman on the right, she had us all in tears. She just said she applied for the program, didn't think twice, didn't even know why she was doing it. She just heard about it through a friend and thought she was going to apply, didn't think she'd get in because the list was so long. And she got in and she started coming to church, and she said her life was a wreck before this program. And now, standing here 6 months later, she said, it just feels like I have the perfect life. She said, I found God, and my whole life has turned around, and all of my extended family have now found God through this church and this program. And she said, life is pretty perfect. And I'm not selling a bill of goods like life is perfect after you find Jesus, but it's pretty good. And her words, not mine. So the woman here in front, these are our 3 teachers. So Becky and I are standing with the 3 teachers. The one in front is the main teacher. When we started this program back in 2018, she was a student in the first class. And now she has learned so much, and she's become a part of the community, and she's a part of the church there, and she sings in the choir. They have a choir there with the women. It's amazing. And she is now the head teacher of the program. So we're really happy with what God has done in her life. Okay. This is, how am I doing on time?
Okay. Good.
Okay. This is a leper's home. Okay, so we used to support it. We used to feed them every month.
Backstory: leprosy is still a thing.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
In India.
Yes.
They have, I don't know, maybe 100,000 new cases a year.
Yes.
And it's been eradicated everywhere in most of the world because you take a round of antibiotics and you get cured. And so,
well, but they don't have access
by the time
to medical.
a lot of people are cured, it's already disfigured them.
So mainly they didn't have a lot of open cases. Like you saw bandages, but mainly it was for protecting limbs or like their feet that they can't feel. They can't feel their feet and no shoes fit, so they wrap them in bandages because, if they were to step on something sharp, they wouldn't feel it and it would get infected. And so most of them were missing appendages or had deformities. They're outcasts. Like no one wants to have anything to do with them. No one will employ them. They're homeless. They're unemployed. They actually beg on the streets. So the government has given them housing. So they have a place to sleep now. And the building behind us, you can go to the next slide. This is the building. And they gather once a month, and our directors of Global Grace, they have different funding that they get for this home. So Global Grace stopped funding this a couple of years ago, and it is now funded by someone else. Except I just learned that the funding that they have will get them through 20 days of the month and not 31. So for the other 10, 11 days, they are back to begging on the streets. So it's one of the changes we're gonna make right now.
And what that funding means is that once a month, they come and they get a bag of rice, some lentils, and some oil given to them.
And clothes, like once every 6 months.
Yeah, like that's what it is. There's three things: oil, lentils, and rice. That's what is provided to them.
So you see, there's about 70 of them here in the front, and then in the back, like up on the seats, it's their families. So this affects everyone. It affects their kids, their grandkids. You can go to the next slide. On the right, I'm talking to a little boy. I'm just saying hi to a little boy that a mom is holding, and it's her mom that is a leper. So it's generational. The curse is somewhat generational. It's hard for even them to find employment. And the economic impact on their families have been really great. So we passed out the rice. There I am on the left. Okay, I put this picture in here because, like, they asked me, everybody's helping. We're all handing out lentils and whatever. It took us about an hour and a half to pass everything out, and we prayed for them. And the standard is I need to put 3 of those white buckets that I'm holding in my right hand into their bags that they bring to me. Okay, so three full buckets of rice go into each container that they bring to me. So I sit down, I'm doing it quickly, I scoop and I pour, and like the lady goes, and I was like, what? What did I do wrong, right? And I didn't put a heaping bucket. It was just level. It wasn't heaping. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. It mattered. It mattered to her. That extra bit of rice that was traditional that they had been, that's the standard that they'd been doing, and I had done it wrong. And it mattered. And that really impacted me to think, how much do I think about a little bit of rice across the top? And it mattered to her. So I want to do something better for this home. I want to get funding for the last 10 days, the gap, especially in the districts that they beg in. So whichever district you beg in, you then have to pay the boss man of that district who allows you to beg in his territory. So you have to pay him a percentage of what you get from begging. So it's really demeaning, it's demoralizing, it just takes away all dignity. And I want to, Global Grace is gonna step in and we're gonna help cover the rest of the month. They need to be off the streets. Okay, so.
Do you want me to talk about this?
College, sure.
So
we started out with little kids.
Yeah.
And now they're growing.
Yeah,
so all of a sudden, we have houses full of teenagers, and we're a little bit stressed.
And so, realistically, the only way out of poverty, because they don't have, if you think about how, families support families, it's really hard for us to be the financial support for 25 kids as they move into adulthood, especially because the Christian communities there aren't wealthy, right? They're at the lower end of society, and so really the main pathway,
because they're Christian.
Yes, but the main pathway for our kids to be able to age out, go into adulthood and be able to be self-supporting and not live in poverty is through education. And so we've always wanted to send them off to a trade school or send them off to college if they're able to. But this hit really became a huge thing. I visited India, and my last trip, I was going through in one of the homes, and I was keeping track of. I had pictures from my visit before, and I'm keeping track. Oh, there's that girl. She's grown this much. There's this boy. He's grown this much. Oh, it's good to see him again. And I have a picture of a girl, and I'm like, where's she? She's not here. She's not here. And what had happened is that an extended family member, because this is the custom, we don't end up with legal custody of the kids. We're just taking care of them. An extended family member had come and had married this girl off. Right, yeah. And, at far too young of an age, and there's nothing legally we can do about it. And one of the reasons behind this is, especially, younger girls are often seen as a liability because, you have to pay a dowry and whatnot. So in some cases, you're maybe looking for the lowest, who will take the lowest price, or you're just trying to, it's a debt you're trying to get off the books. And so all of a sudden we realize that by especially young women, obviously young men too, because they can be seen as an asset. Oh, you're my cousin, I'm gonna make you come work for me or something. There's lots of ways these kids are vulnerable to exploitation. And so one of the not just for their future, independent of everything else, but especially because of their vulnerability here, if we can get them an education, it does two things. One, it makes it less likely that some extended family member will come and try to force them into something, because that, we're building up that asset in a sense. But it also empowers those kids themselves, that they are no longer dependent upon the external structures, that they can have choice and freedom over their own lives. And the remarkable thing is that sending them off to college, whether it's their version of community college or 4-year degree, it's $200 to $300 a year.
Really cheap.
Like if you think about sending
to US.
200 kids off to college here, you're like, well, go talk to a billionaire or something. But but it's remarkable how cost efficient it is for us. You want to talk about Sunita?
Yes. So Sunita on the bottom in pharmacology, she was our first student to ask to do this. She's a really good student in school. So kids go through 10th grade, and then 11th and 12th grade, there's actually a cost to it. It's like you pick your area of interest. It's not really like a major, but it's like just an area of interest. And then it's
very
like
similar to community college.
You get like a diploma. Yeah, it's similar to community college, but there's a cost to it. It's about $230 a year. So most kids stop at 10th grade. So we started taking, she was a very good student, and she came to us and said she wants to keep going. So we're like, yes, what's the cost? Where do we sign? So we sent her off to school, and she graduated then when she was done with her diploma, 11th and 12th grade, she went on to get a bachelor's in pharmacology, and she just graduated with her 4-year degree in her bachelor's in pharmacology this past year. So, and I think that cost us like $1,300, all told, everything total. I think it was $1,300. So we are more than excited about that. Now you start multiplying that by 12 and 22, and we've got a little bit of a problem. But we'll take 1 year at a time, and we have other people that have sponsored these students. So we just basically go 1 year at a time, and when tuition comes due, we put the fundraiser up on Facebook. So I don't know if you're watching, if you want to jump in and help. That's kind of how we fundraise for these students. So next slide. That was her graduation. And you can see in the bottom right corner, so they don't ever have to leave our homes. I think she's 22 now. They don't have to leave our homes. They can work, they can study, they can stay with us as long as they need to. They're our families now. They're family. But she's such a great example for the younger students. Like they're changing the culture. This home now knows you can go to college. Like you can go be like Sunita and go to college and get a degree. She's really great at it. I gotta tell you, she is living in the main city. This home is down in one of the villages south of, the main city is called Vishakhapatnam. So I'll quiz you later.
Say that 10 times fast.
So she is living there now because after her bachelor's, she got a free ride to her master's program because she is such a good student. She now has a free spot in the city for a master's program in medicine. So she's just a great example. You can go to the next slide. So she made me sit. They make you sit everywhere you go. You're like, sit down, sit down. It's like a courtesy thing, hospitality thing. Sit down, sit down. I'm like, I want to talk to you. She's like, sit down. So she makes me sit down and she says she wants to share with me her story. And I was telling her how proud I am of her and what an amazing example she is to the young people around her. And I'm just really like building her up and telling her how excited I am. And she drove 3 hours down to her home, her children's home where she grew up, because now she's away. She's in her master's program. She drove 3 hours to see me. And she said, I have to tell you, she speaks fluent English now. She speaks English, giving me her testimony in English. And she said, I have to tell you, I have to thank you because of, she says, what you and your husband did. She knows Global Grace, but she thanks us personally because we believed in her and we sponsored her education. And she said, without resources like that, I don't know where I would be today. And you didn't know me, but you gave anyway. And she just poured her gratitude on me, and I was so moved. And we were both standing there crying, and she said, you know, her dad had a disease when she was a little girl. Her dad came down with a disease, and someone prayed for him. I don't know the story, I don't know how it happened, but somehow they ended up in this local church. And when he passed away, she said, my dad knew Jesus when he passed away. And her mom couldn't take care of her anymore. And so that's how she ended up in one of our homes. And she said, this home was the best thing that ever happened to me. God took something that was a bad thing in my life and he turned it into something really great. And I learned about God in this home, and God has followed me my whole life, and he has made a path for me. And now I'm in this master's program, and it's because of people like you. And of course, when she says me, she means all of you too. And she just poured her gratitude on me. And I was crying and she was crying, and I just was walking out, and I just told one of the directors, I was like, you wouldn't believe just the stuff that Sunitha just said to me. And he looked at me and he said, you know, if they could all talk in English, they would all tell you the same thing. And I just think it's really important that the kids in these homes, especially the teenagers, especially the girl who said, no, ma'am, we're not hungry, they know. They may be kids, but they know. They know what you're doing for them. They know what we're doing. They know their life story. They know what it would be. They are really grateful for the resources that we pour out on them, having never met them. Most of you in this room, probably you will never meet any of them, and yet you give. And they understand that. They grasp it. They know. And if they could, they would pour their gratitude out on each one of you as well. She's a beautiful person. If I didn't do anything else in my life and I did Global Grace just for her, it would be worth it. Okay, next slide.
So this is just what we said earlier. Christina and I, we started Global Grace. It's something that God was calling us to do. Whether anyone else ever gave or ever joined in, it didn't matter. And so
we're a lot bigger than we ever thought we're still little. We're still a small organization, but it's just doing a lot more than we ever imagined.
But this is our ministry. So Christina and I if you get a newsletter, Christina put that together. We're the ones that are volunteering our time to do it. All of Global Grace, on this side of the planet, we're volunteers. We do hire some of the people in India, of course. But we're entirely run by volunteers, and all administrative costs are something that we personally cover. We want, when people give, we want your gifts to go directly to needs. And so this is something that, as long as God allows us to do, this is something we're committed to. And so thank you. I just want to reiterate what Christina said. You know, when we go, we get love and gratitude poured on us. And so as best we can, transmit that and pour it onto you. Thank you for supporting us, and thank you for having us here. And I think to sort of wrap this up, I think if you're okay with it, well, we would like to offer you a Q&A. If you have any questions about anything, we would love to share more, because, you know, we just try to condense it all down. I mean, we took an hour, and we could go for many, many hours more, but yeah, you just now found the clock.
I just found the clock. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the struggles that you just recently went through in traveling there and the nature of how things are changing.
Well, it was actually a smooth trip. I was very happy with how smooth it's been. It is a little bit of a struggle. So if you don't know, this is the first time I went to India. So in the past, I've had small children. They're like defying gravity now at this point. So they're getting a little bit older, and Daniel and I don't want to go together at the same time. We don't want to both be away from home at the same time. Also, it is a little bit tricky to travel in India. I don't know, I'm gonna let you take this.
It's not always safe for women to travel in India. So, I mean, India is a wonderful country. As with any country, the people are beautiful. But, you know, that is something that, on average, they have struggled with, is the safety of women traveling. So that's one of the reasons she took a friend with her, and also, you know, just a lot of planning.
And we were never alone.
And, you know, so there's a lot that goes into it. But, like, you know, we were gone, 11 days, and
we were stopped by
4
security.
of them are traveling, and
yeah.
It's a long, hard trip, but it's worth it.
Also,
there are more complications that I think, you know, if you want to ask us privately, we probably don't want to talk about while it's streaming.